Okay, let's have another chat about Iran and what they should or should not do right now vis-a-vis potentially developing nuclear weapons. And this is Professor Marandi versus Scott Ritter. So I just watched a fairly long clip of Ritter, and then before that of Marandi on the, I believe it's India Left channel. I'll link it down below. And, Marandi was basically saying that there's been this fatwa that's been in place, this religious ruling or edict. I believe it's potentially since even the 1990s that, says it's against the Islamic religion to develop or possess nuclear weapons. And that was a ruling by the supreme leader at the time. They have a different one now, but that could potentially, be changed if certain extraordinary circumstances are in place that make it very much a, necessity to change that. So that's kind of Marandi's perspective, is that, and also why he's talked on different interviews before. I've heard him talking about how can Iran trust anything that the United States says they will do, right? Iran was completely in compliance with the Iran nuclear deal, aka the JCPOA, which was signed in 2015 under the second Obama administration, second term, and first Trump term got rid of it, even though Iran was in complete compliance, he got rid of the first Iran nuclear deal, even though Iran was completely compliant. How can Iran or anybody logical and rational, why would you believe that the U.S. would adhere to any agreement they make in the future? And also, Marandi has pointed out that Iran has, this nuclear program for electricity, for energy development and production, and it's a very highly developed program that they're using for civilian uses, which obviously, nuclear is a form of energy that some countries use. And that he also makes the point that if the U.S. was to strike Iran, that there's a whole lot of U.S. military bases in the region that Iran could strike back with, not necessarily with nuclear weapons, because they don't have that right now. And he also mentioned, or maybe the host mentioned, that there was a Senate hearing last week where Tulsi Gabbard, the director of National Intelligence, DNI, said that, Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons right now, right? That Iran has very, high-level missile systems that aren't nuclear-based, very capable of defending themselves if they were to be attacked by the U.S. or Israel, and we've seen that in the past. Was it back in the summer when Israel was bombing Iran? Iran struck back and was able to hit military targets because they don't target civilian infrastructure. They don't aim to commit war crimes, unlike the Israelis and the United States. So that's a little bit of Marandi's perspective. Again, he is I believe U.S.-born Iranian, lives in Iran, teaches at the University of Tehran. Really appreciate his perspective. It's always very level-headed and based in the current reality and always takes a very historical perspective to explain, the thinking and decisions that are being made from a very logical and reasonable perspective. So I'll link it down below again so you can make sure I'm not misquoting or misrepresenting Marandi's position. And let's go to Ritter. His segment was quite a bit longer, so I almost think their two clips were kind of spliced together, because it would have been really nice to have a back and forth between Ritter and Marandi on this topic. So Ritter, his biggest concern is that he doesn't want to see the downfall of Iran, and then he admits they don't have nuclear weapons at this point, but they're developing uranium to 60%, and that's one grade below weapons grade. The next step up, they could achieve it very easily. He cites a Iranian general that says we could, if necessitated, have nuclear grade product within a week. And then Ritter talks about how easy it would be for them to attach that to some type of weapon, and then they would have nuclear weapons at that point. And he says, he doesn't think it's obviously fair or equitable that the United States is siding with Israel. Israel has nuclear weapons, right? But the U.S. is an ally of Israel, and Iran having nuclear weapons is an existential threat to our ally in Israel, and that this is just unforgivable. This is Ritter's perspective, unforgivable what Iran is doing. It just can't be excused. He doesn't want to see Iran go up in flames, and that the U.S. military under Trump developed, these certain type of nuclear weapons that could really do a lot of damage on Iran if they were dropped. What else? So again, he said, this is just one thing that can't be excused, them being this close to potentially having developed nuclear weapons. He cited that Iran in general, that they might just be a week away from developing them if that religious edict, if that fatwa, is reversed. So that's, again, I want to make sure I'm not misrepresenting his position, but I think I did a pretty good synopsis of it. Again, please correct me if I'm wrong. But again, he says this is one thing that can't be forgiven. The United States is the only country in the history of the world to use nuclear weapons. They dropped it on civilian populations, even though the Japanese were ready to surrender in World War II. And again, this is a bit of a tangent, but why did the U.S. do that? Because they wanted to use it as a show of force to show the Soviet Union that they had that capability. So again, wouldn't it be more of an existential threat to Iran that they don't have nuclear weapons at this point, when Israel does, when the state of Israel has been trying to get the United States to go to war with Iran since the Iraq War started back in 2003? How is it an existential threat to Israel if Iran was to develop a nuclear weapons program? It seems the complete opposite. That is an existential threat to Iran, that they don't have one at this point. And again, I don't think they would be like the US and have some preemptive strike policy when it comes to nuclear weapons, unlike the United States. I think they are very much rational and level-headed, and they take all of this historical context and the current reality into consideration when making decisions. You don't see them leveling any type of offensive missile strikes towards Israel, right? They only do that when they're justified after Israel has already bombed Iran or targeted and murdered, let's say, General Qasem Soleimani, the head of the IRGC, who played a pretty big role in helping defeat ISIS in Syria during the US proxy war there. So again, you never provided any of this historical context on corporate media, and it almost seems like Ritter is carrying water for the narrative that is being pushed by the neocons, by the Trump admin, by the liberal and conservative establishment. So I'm definitely siding more with Marandi here. I think it's a lot more rational and reasonable explanation compared to Ritter's, but I would love to hear your thoughts down below. Peace, much love. No war, but class war.